you clicked on this video, you probably struggle with procrastination. And like me, you've probably heard over and over again that if you want to achieve your goals, you're going to have to stop procrastinating. And for people like us, overcoming this struggle can feel like an impossible feat. And honestly, it probably is. But as the years have gone on and I continue to achieve my goals while still procrastinating, I've started to think of procrastination not as something that I need to overcome, but something that I can embrace and even use to my advantage. I've been a procrastinator for as long as I can remember. And I'm talking like writing the essay the morning it's due level procrastination. But I've also been an overachiever my whole life. I got basically a full ride to Boston University where I was a D1 track athlete, I had a part-time job, and I graduated in 4 years with a bachelor's and master's degree in linguistics. Currently, I'm one class away from finishing my second master's degree while I balance my full-time job, this YouTube channel, and like 2 other side hustles. So in this video, I'm going to share with you how I understand procrastination and how I've kind of made it like my superpower. So a few years ago in therapy, I learned that procrastination is actually a coping mechanism for anxiety. You have a task to do, say write an essay, make a presentation, create a new YouTube video. And when you have those things to do, thoughts come up in your head like it'll be difficult, I might not do it well enough, no one will like it, I might fail the test. It goes on and on and on. And obviously the thoughts of those possible outcomes don't produce comfortable feelings. And so we push the tasks away by avoiding doing them so that we don't have to feel so uncomfortable. So I learned that procrastination is a coping mechanism. And honestly, it works. When you procrastinate, you feel less unpleasant. It obviously isn't a long-term solution because the task is still there, but in the short term, it works. I also learned that all coping mechanisms have positive effects and negative effects. What I would classify as the top cons of procrastination are that 1, it's generally an unpleasant emotional experience. 2, it allows room for a lot of error in your work. And 3, it can be a big waste of time. But again, there's also some pros, and what I would say are the top pros of procrastination. 1, it shows that you actually care about the work that you're doing and you want to be proud of it and maybe even want to feel passionate about it. 2, people who procrastinate tend to learn how to do work really fast. And 3, you actually learn how to maximize your time when you procrastinate since you give yourself such short amount of times to do things. Me and you, we're go-getters. We have dreams and goals that we care about a lot. So sometimes a task like creating a new YouTube video or prepping for your dream job or launching a business are rightfully anxiety-inducing. So instead of trying to fight the procrastination and anxiety away, I feel like our energy is better spent trying to focus on mitigating the negative effects of procrastination and amplifying the positive effects of it. The first con was that procrastination is an uncomfortable emotional experience. We've already established that procrastination is really just anxiety in disguise. So when I notice that I'm procrastinating, I try to do some anxiety-reducing activities. Another thing that I learned in therapy is that we tend to avoid emotions that we have a low threshold for sitting with. So if you have a low threshold for experiencing anxiety, you will tend to do activities that help you avoid experiencing the feeling. But you can increase your threshold for a specific emotion by doing this activity. It's pretty simple. You just set a timer for 1 minute and do nothing but notice the emotion that you're feeling. You pay attention to how your body feels, the thoughts that are coming across your mind, and you try to give a name to the emotion that you're experiencing. You can start off with 1 minute, or if you're super scared, 30 seconds, and just gradually increase by 30 seconds to a minute until you can sit with that emotion for about 5 minutes. Then over time, the experience of the emotion isn't so daunting because you know that you can sit through it. After I do this, I like to do an activity that I call worst case scenario prepping. So if I have some persistent thoughts or fears coming across my mind, I'll write them down. Usually these fears are centered around a possible negative outcome. The key word here is possible because I immediately rule out any fears coming up that have a less than 1% chance of actually happening. And instead, I focus on thinking about how I'll get through a possible negative outcome if it does arise. For a silly little example, say I need to call my mechanic because I need to figure out when I can come and get my car serviced. but I've been stalling calling. When I notice I'm procrastinating and I do the little mindfulness activity and realize actually I'm anxious, and then I write down the fears that I'm having, I might write down that I'm afraid that he's gonna say, "Why would you call me then, you idiot," and hang up the phone and never service my car. That has a less than 1% chance of happening, so that immediately gets ruled out. But maybe I'm worried that the experience might be a bit awkward, or that I'll feel a little silly or ignorant about cars after the conversation. Those are actual possible outcomes, and they would be uncomfortable, but they're not impossible to get through. So I might create a plan for myself to show myself how prepared I am to go through that kind of unpleasant experience. I might say, well, I felt awkward a lot of times before, which is true, and I'm fine right now, so I should be fine after this experience too. Or I might say afterwards I'll call a friend and share the experience so they can also tell me how they feel so awkward when they call the mechanic, and then I can feel better about myself. Or maybe after I call, if I feel a bit weird, I'll make sure to go get my favorite snack because that always makes me feel better. After I do this, whatever the task is usually seems a lot less daunting because I feel prepared to face whatever I think is the worst possible outcome. The second con that we talked about is how procrastination creates room for error. One big problem with procrastination is that you don't really leave yourself a lot of time for fixes if you make a mistake. Either you don't start the task soon enough to really understand all of the requirements of the task, it ends up being more than you thought it was, or you don't leave yourself enough time after completing the task to check to make sure that you did it to your satisfaction. Here's how I control for this con. First, usually before I start a task, I create another task to just understand what the task is. This may seem like overkill, but usually it's low pressure enough for me not to procrastinate this. And I say, for example, if I have an assignment for one of my grad classes, I don't have to actually start the assignment. I just need to read the requirements of the assignment to make sure I know everything that I have to do. I know what the page requirements are, how many sources I need to cite, or if I'm getting my car registered, I don't have to schedule the appointment to get my car registered or even collect all the materials I'll need to bring with me. I just have to look up what I have to bring with me so that I know how much I have to prep. Doing this at the onset of a project or task usually helps remove error that would have occurred at the end, because then I usually plan my time out a little better and leave room at the end for checks. But just in case I still procrastinate the task and don't have enough time for a check, the best solution that I have for this is to outsource. So either outsourcing reading through an essay by a family member or friend, or making sure that I have a tool like Grammarly to check my grammar, or even just feeding it to ChatGPT to get suggestions on how I might improve something. This isn't a perfect solution for every kind of task, but it's better than nothing. And the last con of procrastination is that it can kind of be a waste of time. So say I have a week to create a PowerPoint presentation for work, but the first 6 days I spend scrolling on my phone procrastinating, and then I complete the whole presentation in the 6th day. Technically, this still took me 6 days to do if I wasn't doing anything else with that time but procrastinating before I started on the 7th day. Being able to do a 7-day task in 1 day actually kind of sounds like a productivity hack to me if you procrastinate wisely, and we'll talk about that more in a second. So the first pro of procrastination is that it's proof that you actually care about the work that you're doing and you want to be proud of it. And if you procrastinate because you think a task will be boring, it also is proof that you want to do work that you feel passionate about. It's not a bad thing that you want to do work that you enjoy, or that you want your work to turn out good or be something that you consider a success. These traits can be so beneficial to work. So I use that as an opportunity to get specific about what succeeding in a task would mean for me, and try to create a plan for what I need to do in order to create work that I'm proud of. Or if it's that I think the task is boring, I try to think of some part of the task that might actually be fun, or a way that I can actually make the task more fun. The second positive effect of procrastination was that you learn to work really fast. When you procrastinate, you give yourself less time to do tasks. And if you do this for a while or your whole life like me, you end up learning how to complete tasks pretty quickly. Here's how I use this to my advantage. If If I'm procrastinating a task like scripting out a YouTube video, I'll give myself 10 minutes to script the video. That's pretty low pressure. You can do anything for 10 minutes, and I tell myself it doesn't have to be complete in 10 minutes, but I'll challenge myself to do it. And if I just do it for 10 minutes, I don't have to worry about it for the rest of the day. And in some twisted way, because my brain is so used to having to produce quality work under the pressure of a really quickly approaching deadline, having just 10 minutes to do something just flips a switch in my brain that helps me get in the zone. It's just like my adrenaline gets going and my mind works more efficiently. I'm never quite done with the task, but usually I'm pretty impressed at how much progress I was able to make in just 10 minutes. And by this time, the feelings of procrastination and anxiety have subsided, and I'm actually eager to continue working on the project. The third pro was that you can actually use procrastination to maximize your time. Being able to work fast means that you actually free up time to do other stuff. So back to the example I was using before of having a week to create a presentation for work, but only doing it in one day. It would be a complete waste of time if I was just scrolling TikTok for those 6 days. But if I was strategic with how I procrastinated, I could actually get a lot done within those 6 days, even if I'm just using one of the days to do the project. So say I really didn't want to do that presentation for work and I was having a really tough time with procrastinating it. In that case, I would give myself alternative tasks that I would be allowed to procrastinate with. So it's fine if I don't work on the presentation, but these are the 5 other activities that I can do instead. So I can't just lay down and go on my phone and go on TikTok, but I could work out, I could do my laundry, I could read background materials for the presentation, I could respond to emails, or I could call my mechanic. This way, I'm not completely wasting time and I'm actually being productive while I procrastinate. And what usually ends up happening is that I come up against another task that I don't want to do even more than the task I was originally procrastinating. Like cooking dinner, for example. I might not feel like cooking dinner, but it's like the last thing on my list that I can do instead of working on the presentation, and suddenly working on the presentation doesn't seem as bad. It's actually pretty genius if you ask me. So those are just a few ways that I've learned to use procrastination to my advantage. Obviously, it's not a perfect system, and I still procrastinate and probably will continue to do so for the rest of my life. But it's no longer something that I feel like I need to fix about myself, and it's actually something that I feel like is a real big advantage in my productivity. I hope this helps you even a tiny bit on your journey to embracing your quirks and accomplishing your goals, whatever they may be. And if you enjoyed this video, you might enjoy this other video I made, how to set goals and actually achieve them. So I will leave it here for you. And otherwise, I will see you in another video. Bye.